What up, everybody? It's your boy Black Magus, and so we gotten the gaming episode of Blak Vibes out. So now we're just gonna do the hodgepodge. Mainly, gonna be just focused on politics and sports. So apologies to anybody for the political stuff. If you're not interested, if you know me and you know me well enough, you know that's just shit I talk about. I like talking about that. If you've ever seen any of my podcasts, you know that that's just the shit that I will talk about. Um, and I've addressed it occasionally in videos or live streams in the past. So, again, you know me, you know my content. So, just warning you right now, this first half, we're going to basically talk a little bit about the political state as we just had a primary here where I live at in the state of Maryland. And, you know, Maryland is typically a blue state. I mean, we just had a Republican governor before Wes Moore was elected about 2 years ago. But it was a Republican governor who mainly won due to legacy. His father was a famous governor of the state, and he kind of got the nostalgia bump. And to be fair, Larry Hogan wasn't horrible. He had some very you know common sense policies. He would do things that made sense in light of the events and things like that, especially during the pandemic. Having his wife go and get the tests and stuff when the government wasn't trying to kick that stuff in and provide them in a timely manner. Um, Things of that nature. Legalization of marijuana being put on the table, and I believe it was just eventually passed a couple of years ago. But it was put on the table during his run. We can't say that he didn't have anything to do with that because he was fine with it. Free colleges, things like that, free community colleges, stuff like that. The raising of the state minimum wage. He did some decent things. Um, so let's not. I'm not here to act like all people of one party are horrible and all people of the other party are the best thing since sliced bread. Sure, I have my political leanings, but I could also see that there are quote unquote exceptions to the rule, so to speak. And for the most part, he was, but I think he's a fool for running for Senate because I don't think he's going to be able to uh, win, for one, and two, I'm not sure if he's going to make the impact that he thinks he could if he wins. If he wins, then it's a sure shot that he's only there for one term because he's been talked about as a potential um, Republican presidential candidate. A lot of people were saying he should have been one of the people to run up against Trump in the current election cycle, as they felt like he was the type of Republican that all Republican conservatives could get back behind, at least the non-extreme ones. They felt like he pivoted enough to draw a lot of them out and draw a lot of moderates too on both sides of the parties, Democrats as well. Because again, that's part of why Hogan got elected because you know there are a lot of moderates who felt his policies. They really thought that he was someone who was a good fit because of how he wasn't just hardcore leaning to one side all the time, you know. So, but hey, we'll see what happens. My county exec actually is running for Senate too, so that's going to be interesting. Um, if she loses, that'll be a big deal because she's running for Ben Cardin's seat, and Ben Cardin, that's a seat you cannot lose. You should not lose, especially as an African American. You should not lose that. in that district. But we'll see. We will see what happens. Gonna be interesting, of course, because of the presidential election. Like,
Sorry, I don't know that one.
of course you don't know that one. Something's been going on. This is the second time I've recorded this, by the way. First time I had to stop because I got interrupted, but my Echo has been listening in, of course, because it's near, and it's been just like randomly saying stuff. Um, like it's crazy. By the way, Ben Cardin's not African American. I'm just saying, like, for some reason, we love Ben the hell out of Ben Cardin, um, in this area. That's why he's been around for so long, like really, really long time, in Maryland politics. So, but anyway, moving on. And sorry for the interruption by my echo. But yeah, the president's election cycle is going to be. It's going to be interesting. Because we're back at the third straight ridiculous election cycle where it's just going to be madness because all tradition has been thrown away for this crazy, hyperpolarized, like, shit. With candidates that are polarized for different reasons, some that just don't make fucking sense, some that do but are being taken to the extreme, and some because if you're a like person who pays attention, you need to be concerned about this shit. But not enough people are acting that way because things have devolved since 2016 so much. Like we just had that incident in the House of Representatives where Marjorie Taylor Greene got called a beach blonde, bad built, butch body. Now, there's context to this, as there's context to everything, but context is being lost as usual in this. And this is part of the problem is that 2016 we were given this whole conception of politics needs to be done in a way where context, facts, and all that don't matter, but the theatrics matter. And you know, while people are harping on the comments made by Jasmine Crockett, some negative, some positive. The point was like and she made this point eloquently afterwards in several interviews that we're at a period now where it seems like one group don't want to actually do anything but disrupt, delay, and cause chaos so they can sneak shit in. Part of the reason she made that comment about Taylor Greene was because during a oversight committee where Croc is trying to make a point, you have Taylor Greene talking about her eyelashes, talking about how they look fake and all that, when she's just trying to make a point on topic. And she asked the head of the committee, look, are you going to let her just do this? And you know it's against the rules for her to make personal attacks. And he was like, I don't see no issue. So that's when she asked the question. So if she called Marjorie Taylor Greene what she said, would she be reprimanded then? Or would she be treated like Marjorie Taylor Greene? And, like, where does the rules apply? And where does decorum come in? He was confused, of course, which was funny as fuck. By the way, shout out to Representative Raskin. That man really wanted to fucking die laughing. Like, Jamie Raskin, again, another person from Maryland, by the way. Shout out to him, who a lot of us love. We love Jamie Raskin here. Like, he was just trying to hold it in. Like you could tell, like he was fucking trying not to lose it because he one didn't want to lose it at her comment. Two didn't want to lose it at the fact that this man reacted confused, like Comer was so confused and out of sorts, and you heard other people laugh too, so you know it was funny. Like it was funny. I'm sorry, it was funny. Yeah, and I don't blame Crockett for that because you can only sit there and let people say and do so much. You know, the turn the other cheek thing, it wears thin, and these days with the stupid like tactics that they're doing with her, especially with Margaret Taylor Greene, all the weird like call outs and like harassing people and yelling in the middle of people talking on both sides. By the way, she's not just doing it to Democrats; she's doing it to Republicans who she has ideological agreement with. She's just acting a fucking fool for no reason other than to try to ruin things and distract from the actual business of governing. And it's like, why do we have these people in Congress? They're, but again, 2016 set that stage, you know, and it was set a little bit earlier during the Sarah Palin run, but it solidified itself in 2016, and now it's just a part of the temperature, and it's sad. It's really, really sad. It's depressing. It's sickening. It needs to stop. I would love to get back to an era where, you know, the fuck shit was done with a little bit more professionalism. Like, you know, there's always been fuck shit in politics, but it's just off the chain now. Like, totally off the chain. And I would love for it to stop. Um, Also off the chain are the takes on Caitlin Clark and the beginning of her WNBA career. Now, if you don't know who Caitlin Clark is, she was a highly celebrated college basketball player for the University of Iowa. She currently holds the um, Division One scoring title, provides most points scored by a basketball player, period. Not just male or female, but both. And, you know, people have been really, really hyped about her. People have looked at her as like the poster child for the evolution of the women's game, which that in itself is already ridiculous. You know, especially for someone like me who grew up and actually paid attention to women's basketball, like maybe not as much as I did college when I was younger, but as I got older, I paid even more and more attention. And I probably paid more attention than most when I was younger. Part of that was because, you know, there's a personal reason why I've always had an affinity to the women's game, but everybody's been saying how like she's revolutionized college basketball, and now more people are watching because of her. And I think to a degree, she has attracted a lot of people to view the game. But I also think that they're discounting to the credit of others and just women's college basketball just being better, period. And in a lot of ways, especially when you look for the college level, and now you're getting some of that too in the pro level, you're getting a better quality of play. What I mean by better quality of play is that you're seeing people play like all facets of the game, and the lack of athleticism is probably part of the reason why you see that. Like, I've always said that women are more fundamentally sound than men these days because a lot of the current basketball players in men's basketball rely on their athleticism more than anything, as opposed to their basketball IQ and their skills. Like, you know, being skilled. Like, you have the Steph Currys, but the Steph Currys are fewer and far between than, you know, say that kid that can. I'm trying to think of like one particular person. Like,
Yeah, no.
I will use Anthony Edwards right now because while I think Anthony Edwards is trending towards becoming a more complete player, we all know that he didn't come into the league even as good as he is now. He always had the potential, but a lot of what he did was based off his athleticism. He's rounding out now, but you see that, like, it takes a few years for these NBA players to round out and actually develop their skills because, you know, it's such a rush to get them in. Whereas, again, women's players, because their game isn't as highly touted, they stay in college, they learn the game, they perfect their game. And when they get to the pro level, they're just like out of this world with it. And so, Caitlin Clark is now in the WNBA, and she's had a couple of struggles in the first couple of games, which makes sense, you know. Because as you excel in the levels of sports, we see this everywhere. That high school star ain't the greatest player in college football all the time. You know, that Heisman Trophy winner doesn't necessarily translate into the best or one of the best at his position in the pros. You know, same thing with women's basketball. She's having her struggles, but people are making these weird takes to where they're now asking people, "Hey, what are they doing? They're setting her up. They made her schedule too hard, or they just hating on her. They're trying to see her fail." All these other teams are playing so like hard on her, and they're overcompensating because they don't like her because she's more famous than her. Like, y'all, the fuck. Couple of things. One, it's okay not to think that Caitlin Clark is the end all be all of women's basketball. It's okay to not think that Caitlin Clark is the MJ of women's basketball all of a sudden. It's okay to think that she's not the greatest college basketball player of all time. Because, again, if you paid attention, you realize that you can have these conversations about a lot of people. Problem is, we don't have these conversations, and we haven't had these conversations just because it's the evolution of women's sports and women in the place of society. Let's be honest. Back in the day, in the 80s, you know, growing up, women's basketball was a thing, but they didn't have a league like they do now in the United States. If you wanted to continue to play basketball, you had to go to a foreign country in the 80s and 90s. You know. Also, socially speaking, women being athletes was still becoming something that I guess you could say society was getting used to. Because, I forget, is it Title 15? I forget it's Title 14 or 15. Forgive me for being incorrect. And please correct me on what it is. But that wasn't that long before, like, you know, things started to pick up for women's athletics. Like, that shit was what, late 60s, early 70s? To where they were like, you had, you know, give fair opportunity for women in sports. So it's our minds have finally started to progress to recognize women's sports a little more, and we're still not even totally recognizing it. It's like I was thinking about this earlier, like when I was listening to, and reading from the comments about Caitlin Clark. It's wild because y'all are saying all these things like the game was unwatchable and not entertaining until all of a sudden she came along and started to do her thing. When there have been so many great women like Lisa Leslie, Cynthia Cooper, shit, Cheryl Swoops. You can make an argument was one of those revolutionary people too. Cheryl Millen, damn sure was a revolutionary women's player.
Oh my god.
That
Oh my god. I was coming to get you.
most of these people didn't get their
I know.
get the hype that she got because again, they existed in an era where people didn't really pay attention, and like a lot of them, like the Cynthia Coopers and the Cheryl Swoops, the Dawn Staleys, who now people are recognizing as an excellent coach. All of them didn't get to play here and showcase that
He got sniped back though.
at all, if not just at the basically end of their playing careers. You know, like they played for a few years in the WNBA and then they were ready to retire because they had played so many years overseas where they couldn't do it, and then they finally got to do it here and show themselves. So you never had the spotlight like you do now. You never had the access. You never had the willingness to give it a chance. You know, because that's not where society is. But now they are, and it's just like you still see it in a lot of different things. Like soccer's not that big of a deal here, but when the Cup comes around, everybody's all Team USA back in the men's team. You don't necessarily get the same hype and temperature that you do for the women's team. Even though the women's team has been fucking dominant at times, like for like long periods of time in women's soccer. Men's soccer hasn't been shit. They've not done anything. They basically get participation awards, if we're going to be honest, when it comes to the world stage. They don't even make it a lot of years. So, that being said, going back to the whole, like, now people, like, focusing all of a sudden recognizing women's basketball and looking at Caitlin Clark as this transcendent figure. One, is unfair to her. I think to put that much pressure on her. But two, it's also unfair to everybody who preceded her and unfair to the game, period, because now you're having these takes where you want them to engineer the game to make her look good, because why? Why do we need her to look like the best player? You have some of the best players already. You have an Asia Wilson. You have a Breonna Stewart, you know. You have those players already in the game. Diana Taurasi's near the end of her career. She's still playing good basketball. You know, she's still been doing very good. Sylvia Fowles, good player. You know, Jonquil Jones. Brittany Griner's had a good career that nobody wanted to recognize because all they wanted to do was make man jokes about her. Like, it's just weird. It's so weird that you want to make all these takes about how they need to now step back and stop being jealous and stuff like that. If anything, I would say any negativity that other women have towards Caitlin Clark doesn't have anything to do with Caitlin Clark. It has to do with you guys and how you are now perceiving the game and perceiving women and how you're acting like this shit hasn't been done and that there haven't been people who preceded her that have done great things in their sport. And you're treating it like without her, their sport's nothing. And that's not true. I mean, you're discrediting them and you're not even supporting WNBA like you think you are by saying that shit. If anything, you're showing that, one, you don't actually really care. You just know the most popular thing that's out now, so you're riding with that, if anything. You know? And for two, that, you know, if Caitlin Clark didn't exist, the narrative would be back to everything's boring, everything's slow, and you would just be basically making fun of the shit, which it's just wild. It's wild to me. It's just like I don't get it. I don't get it. But it is what it is. Anyway, that is it for this episode. Just wanted to talk about those two things, and now I feel more caught up. I'm sure I'll probably get some flack for some of this stuff, but look, guys, you gotta grow up as a society and like start to really recognize things. Like thinking about why I'm into women's basketball. Like, God rest her soul, my sister Julie. She used to play high school basketball. She was one of the best basketball players I've ever seen in person. Watching her like hustle dudes on the blacktop, watching her doing her games as a kid in school, like being such a dominant. She's always reminded me, like, whenever I see Don Staley, I always think of my sister Julie. Like, back in the day when I used to watch Don Staley play at Virginia. Always reminded me of my sister Julie. Like, really, really tough. You know, goes hard to the paint. Like, knows the game very, very well. Good passer, all of that. And, you know, phenomenal basketball player. And it's a funny thing because everybody celebrates Don Staley now. If y'all would have been paying attention to her in college, y'all be celebrating her then too. Because Don Staley was a bad motherfucker in college. Love her game. Like her game was, again, reminding me of my sister Julie. Of course, I loved her then. And it's like being someone who's actually paid attention to it. It is kind of frustrating seeing the narratives that's going around now. Like y'all need to stop. Like y'all really need to stop and grow. We need to grow up as a society and like, again, it's all about progression. Things just seem to want to regress instead of progress, and like, give those ladies their props, please, all of them. Like, not just the one. It's okay it's okay to celebrate Caitlin Clark, but let's not act like she made the game. Seriously. And let's not act like the game is hating on her because of what you perceive she's done for the game.
I'm not leaving.
Rookies are supposed to struggle, like, now and then. Not everybody comes in and just dominates the league from day one. In male sports, any sport. You know, that's the way it is. The way it's supposed to go, people. It's sports. Stop making up dumb shit. Anyway, that's it for this episode. As I said before, hopefully you guys will let me know what subjects you want me to talk about. If you think of anything, put it in the comments. More than happy to address it, as long as it's something that I feel, you know, strongly about. Because I don't like just making commentary just to be making commentary about things. I have to have some type of real motivation to speak on something, because too many people with content do that. Just come out and say whatever, just for the engagement, and that's not what I'm about. I want to have like serious conversations with you guys about stuff that I'm serious about, and hopefully you're serious about listening to and discussing yourself. So, anyway, as always, you guys feel free to hit me up. Let me know what you're thinking. I'll hop you later. This is your boy Black Magus, and I'm out. Deuces.